Starting.
So welcome to the Rational Rebels, where we challenge ideas and not the side they come from. I'm Justin.
I'm Yashu.
And this is our inaugural podcast. And unfortunately, we don't have protesters outside like another inauguration that took place recently.
Yeah, and you can also subscribe right now if you haven't already. You probably already have. That's why you're watching this in the future. It's what date is it? It's February 17th.
Yeah.
And just for reference, 2 days ago, Michael Flynn had to resign. So that is the context we're living in when we talk.
Yeah. But we will get to that issue later. We want to open by talking about something that's happening tonight. A little preview of Bill Maher's show. Some of you may have heard. Milo Yiannopoulos, who, if you don't know him, pause this, go Google that. We don't even need to explain, I don't think.
No, I think if you're watching this, you probably know.
So Milo's going on Bill Maher's show. And he was supposed to be joined by a panelist. I've never even heard of this guy. So that just tells you right there. Jeremy Scahill.
He's a lefty.
He's a left-wing panelist, sure. And so, you'd think great show, great, setting. You've got Maher, who's, calls himself a liberal, is on a lot of issues, but of course. Not a purist and not, he's a free speech advocate. Says a lot of things about Islam that don't necessarily fly with what the hardcore ideologues on the left would say. Anyways,
right.
You'd think, great place to, if you disagree with Milo, you've got a great setting. You can take him on. Idea versus idea. What does Jeremy do? Pulls out.
Yeah. So this journalist
pulls out.
And do you think he pulls out? Not that way, but do you think he pulls out because he just doesn't think he'll be able to beat Milo in this debate topic?
Well, I think, what else can you say? I mean, let me read a real quick quote, just so we give him his platform. To be fair to him, so he tweets this long explanation, which I'll summarize as follows. Basically, he says that. Here's a quote. There's no value in debating him being Milo.
Right.
Appearing on Real Time will provide Yiannopoulos with a large, important platform to openly advocate his racist, anti-immigrant campaign. It will be exploited by Yiannopoulos in an attempt to legitimize his hateful agenda. And he goes on from there. Now, my question is, if Milo's ideas are so obscene, and many of them maybe, then why don't you take this opportunity to expose that?
Okay, so I think a couple of things. I think when you look at Milo, he's obviously trying to be a provocateur, right? That's his specialty. He wants to be a provocateur.
Absolutely.
He wants to be able to, make people cry. And I think there's a need for that in society, because people like Jeremy can't be so sheltered as when they have people that have opposing views. As soon as that happens, they run away, right? So this is the whole problem with like we talked about last time with the university safe spaces. The whole point of a university is to be exposed to new ideas, and ideas that you don't like. That's what really defines what our political spectrum is being exposed to stuff that we haven't heard before, that we don't agree with initially, right? Just because you don't like a certain thing to begin with doesn't mean you'll never ever try it again, and maybe you won't like it in the future, right? So I think Jeremy Scahill is definitely a pussy for not coming on, and I think he's setting a precedent about like that really just undermines all liberal values of open speech, free speech, which classical liberals. He's not, in my definition, a classical liberal.
He's not, but sorry to interrupt, but can you even call free speech a liberal value anymore?
I think the word liberal has just changed.
It's commandeered, and we can totally get to that. But I think if we're talking liberal in the sense of left wing in the United States right now,
yeah,
not in the classical liberal sense,
yeah,
Free speech is the exact antithesis of what they argue. It's absurd. They do this all the time.
Yes.
They either A, run from your ideas, or B, try and shut them down. This is a platform in which you can sit there and talk to the guy face to face. You've got a platform to say, hey, you're an idiot. I think you're wrong because ABC.
Yeah.
You got a bunch of people listening. If your ideas are better, then why should you shy away from that?
And also the whole point of free speech and the whole point of exercising your free speech is when it's not a popular view. That's when you really show your true colors on whether or not you believe in free speech. Because if you only are for free speech when it's your speech, you're not for free speech.
No.
You're only for free speech if, let's say, like if Jeremy Scahill came on and started saying all these values I didn't agree with, and I said, I'm not going to debate this guy because I'm just going to, I don't agree with this stuff, so I don't want to give him a platform. Well, that's the total, as you said, the antithesis of free speech.
And the other thing is, his argument is, oh, I don't want to give Milo a platform. That's bullshit, because he's not taking away Milo's platform. If Scahill, it was his show, and Milo was coming on, and they said, you know what, you're not coming on anymore.
Yeah.
That's called taking away his platform.
Yeah.
Guess what? Milo's still going on Bill Maher's show tonight.
And Bill
so
Maher
who's not the representative who could maybe argue against it? It's absurd.
But to Bill Maher's credit, he is for free speech.
Oh, sure. No, I'm not arguing that.
And you got to commend that, at least on Real Time. He's having Milo on. Obviously, he wants him on for ratings and all that.
Absolutely.
But I think overall, you got to commend him.
Yeah, no, I respect that. I mean, you do certain things for ratings, but I don't think you can put it all down to that. He's been for free speech for years, and I don't think anyone from the left or the right is going to question that element of Maher. So, I mean, it's absolutely absurd, and it's so indicative of this trend where, I mean, if the left, like, what, do they have shit ideas?
Yeah.
You have no confidence in your ideas that you can't present them in front of someone who disagrees and win?
And this is the thing. The very people that are scared to present their ideas towards people and to have an open dialogue are the people with the weakest ideas, the ones that can be torn down with a couple of debates. And so if you really are for finding objective truth and objective political truth, you're a subjective political truth, then you should be open to debates and open to open dialogue, because you should have facts to back them up and have reasoning on why you choose certain political things or certain political choices and you don't make other political choices.
Right. And if you don't, then you should be open to hearing other people's arguments.
But this is the thing now. You see that, like with Milo and UC Berkeley, you see a wave. And this is what I call the fake civil war, okay? This is what they want to paint, like the students at these universities want to paint a big portrait of them fighting for transgender rights and this right and that right.
Fighting Hitler. Their words, not mine.
Is that what they're saying?
They're calling Trump Hitler, and they're calling Milo, who's a gay Jew.
Yeah.
Some people call him a fake Jew.
Yeah.
But he's a gay Jew. And
yeah, exactly. And how can a gay Jew be a white supremacist?
They're saying he's calling for genocide.
And oh my God! And how can a gay Jew be prejudiced against gays? I don't get it. Like, the left just does not think. You know what it is? Back to my Civil War thing. They want to be part of that revolution, that Martin Luther King Jr. movement, where they look back in the history books. They want to be that person in the Women's March or whatever. Which, Women's March might have some merit, but the majority of people that went really didn't know what it was about. They just went because it was kind of an anti-Trump protest, and that's a big problem, I think, today in society.
Well, there's this desire to just, like you said, be part of the movement, but there's less of a clear-cut movement, at least from the left. The left has been fighting for certain things like civil rights and women's rights for decades.
Which are definitely great.
Great causes. And so, there was a rallying cry. And so, young people joined up and supported those movements. But now it's almost like you're trying to concoct a new one just because you want to be part of something. And so you're grasping, and all of a sudden it's this huge, exaggeration of calling the right, like, en masse as a whole, white supremacist bigots, genocidal. It's simply not the case. It's not the case at all. And that's the value of someone like Milo. I don't personally agree
Right.
with most things that he says, but I think he's valuable to society because of the reaction that he stimulates, A, and B, exposes. It's absurdities. And so he shows the hypocrisies of the left, you know, and by going out there and seeking those reactions and making absurd points, you know, if the left would just approach him rationally and, you know, try and challenge his actual ideas, that'd be one thing. But no, we're gonna light garbage cans on fire, smash windows, punch protesters. You know, the left has been, but like on campuses especially, I feel like there's this fostering and like acceptance of legitimate anarchy.
Definitely.
Like I see it on Facebook posts, I see it at universities, the university I attend, you know, there's this legitimate acceptance of an anarchist response to these kind of things. It's absolute, it's scary.
Yeah. And you know that saying that they all have is it's fine. You shouldn't be Trump shouldn't be hating on XYZ people, group, person, but I'm going to hate on Trump because I can't stand for those values that he has. Right. Well, it's exactly the same thing you're reciprocating on Trump, is the hate that you disagree with him having. So basically what you're saying is, I don't like Trump because he doesn't like the same people I do, or he doesn't have the same policies as me, but if he did, I would like him. So basically you're an ideologue. You know, you don't stand on any merit. You only stand on your own ideas, and you think that there's that your truth is the objective truth.
Right. No, it's a two-team game, but right now the left is so much more, you know, team-oriented. They never depart from the one, you know, honed-in view, and everyone subscribes, and no one questions it, and they're willing to burn property and destroy property for it.
So okay, let's talk about in defense of that. What about the people that say, hey, everyone that was burning down those garbage cans and throwing this up, they weren't actually the left. They were the radical group of a subsegment of people. And that doesn't make them automatically lefties if they're hating Milo. It could be anyone.
I think absolutely it's a subset. It would be so stupid to argue that the majority of the left is destroying property, committing violence. That's not true.
Exactly.
But and I don't have facts to back this up because I don't think the numbers are very clear. You're like right-wing versus left-wing news sources, totally disproportionate evaluation on the actual violence that's occurring at some of these protests. But there is video of it happening in multiple instances at the UC Berkeley protest. And that's one example. And while it is the exception, not the norm, I think it is also a product of the overall like leftist campus culture being supportive, if not encouraging, of violent anarchist responses, which aren't warranted. We're not launching a coup here.
Right.
There are select instances where violence is justified. This is not one of them.
Okay, and I think, I don't know if it's I think on campus it might be the vast majority are, you know, these radical leftists. Radical leftists and leftists literally are the same thing to me. But I think you see a higher proportion of universities. But I think let's debate. Do you think if you take just Democrats, what percentage of them do you think would have violent views and would participate in violence, just like in UC Berkeley? If you had to guess, what percent do you think?
Very small percentage.
Okay.
I think it's outside of the Democratic Party. I think it's, you know, the left beyond that.
Like the Bernies.
Maybe not the Bernies, but equally far removed from the Democrats as Bernie supporters. I honestly haven't seen any violence from Bernie supporters specifically. And so I'm not blaming that group, but I'm saying the anarchist left that occupies university spaces, the same ones in trying to enforce speech codes, shut down free speech events.
Yeah. Okay. And so people would say to this, Milo is an absolute bigot. He personally provokes people on purpose, right? And he does so knowingly, and therefore, how can you stand by that, right? I think that's a double-edged sword, right? If we want free speech, we have to accept that there will be trolling, and that is just a matter of fact. And I think you can't separate those two, because if you're going to come in and be an arbiter and say this is free speech, but this is trolling, so I'm not going to have it. That's not free speech.
Absolutely not. But I think you make the right point in that protecting free speech is not protecting free speech for the mainstream or those you agree with. Mm-hmm. Protecting free speech is protecting free speech for those you disagree with on the fringes.
Right.
Because it just so happens that right now your worldview might align with the majority. Uh-huh. But I'm going to tell you, a couple hundred years ago, the white majority worldview was that slavery was a great thing.
Exactly.
What do you think gave Martin Luther King the platform to make his arguments and to preach his message?
Yeah.
Freedom of speech.
Now I'm totally with the people that don't like Milo and voice their opinion, right? I'm totally with them, not because I might agree with them or don't agree with them, but because I'm with them for support, for voicing their opinion, right? Keyword, voicing their opinion, not burning stuff down,
not forcing it.
Right. And so I think that's where you have to be more rational, and you have to think, okay, if I don't agree with XYZ and I don't have, well, the problem they have is they go, okay, I might not agree with Trump's policies, but I think that they're so bad that he's conducting violence and let's say racist things on Mexicans, let's say, and therefore that breaks the morality and the Constitution and all of this. Therefore, I can break it also.
Right, but they're simply wrong about that. I mean, I don't think you can directly attribute, mass violence or persecution to opinions you disagree with. Like, no one's called for, like they imply, but and directly state. But I haven't seen anything that Milo said that actually calls for genocide.
Right.
Haven't seen it.
Right.
Also, haven't seen.
But to be fair, he doesn't embrace the notoriety he gets from all those people.
Sure, he does.
He doesn't denounce that he might be a white supremacist.
But when his ideas are shitty,
yeah,
then they should be the easiest to refute with better ideas. I mean, when he makes he makes absurd claims.
Yes.
In trying to induce a reaction.
Exactly.
When you make an absurd claim, it's way easier to refute than if he was making, like slightly right of center rational arguments, like you see on Fox News or whatever. But he's way out here.
But why?
Because he induces this reaction. Exactly. And it's inevitable, and he knows it's going to come.
Exactly.
But if instead of producing that reaction, people would just, have their own speech events, have their own rallies, protest peacefully, they'd make him look like an idiot. Instead, they're making themselves look so stupid.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, their ideas are better.
Sure.
But they make themselves look ridiculous.
So I think one thing we agree on is that the fight here is not at a discourse level now. It's at who can get more press or who can do the stupider thing.
Yeah.
And it's become this level of incompetency on both sides, because one side is feeding the incompetency to get reactions, and the other side is doing the reverse to do the same thing. The same way Milo is trying to incite this reaction to get more notoriety, the radical lefties and the social justice warriors are burning stuff up because they realize, oh, we're going to make headlines if we do that, and it'll help our cause, right? And the same way Milo thinks it'll help my bank account. It's the same thing. So maybe the best solution out of all this is not giving airtime, not viewing stuff that you think that you don't want to feed into. So if, for example, if me and you don't agree with social justice warriors, maybe we shouldn't be going on their websites or stuff like that. Like simple things to not support them. But that doesn't mean not listening to what they have to say if I'm in an open discourse setting.
Right. I mean, it does give traction in today's world is about views and clicks and likes and all that, right? So you get traction. And so it's a bit of a dilemma because you want to know, like, there's this desire to know, well, what the heck did they say? But at the same time, everyone does that. Milo gets 300,000 views, or a crazy social justice warrior gets 300,000 views, whatever it is. Yeah. And all of a sudden they've got this big platform and they're getting all this notoriety, and now they're on, TV shows. Mm-hmm. So it's not an easy one. I mean, because what are you going to do? Say you're never going to listen to them just because you don't want to give them one extra view? Like,
right. So it becomes marginal at that point. I guess so. So on that topic, do you think then should Bill Maher? Well, Bill Maher can do whatever he wants, but do you think Bill Maher, if he doesn't agree with Milo, should have him on, because obviously that'll give him a platform that he wants?
Yes, I think that overall, this idea of, oh, just don't give them a platform is not the most effective way to shut down bad ideas. You know, people overrate that impact. There's certainly something to that.
What's the best?
Go on Bill Maher and make him look like an idiot.
Okay.
If you like, Bill Maher is the perfect.
But looking like an idiot is objective. You know?
Absolutely. But I firmly believe that if two people go on a TV show, and it's broadcast to millions, and one person's ideas are objectively better than the other person's, they're going to get more support. So if you think Milo's ideas are ridiculous, obscene, offensive, hate-mongering, then go on there and debate him.
Okay, I might agree with you. I'm going to play devil's advocate. I'm going to say that's exactly what they did with Trump, right? And that backfired on them. They gave him more of a platform to make him look stupid. He might have looked stupid, but he fought for the side that's never been fought for before. And just on that notion alone, he won.
I think there's a key difference, though, in that with Trump, I don't think they honestly debated his ideas. They gave him a platform, yes, but they didn't sit there across from him and debate his ideas and rationally pick them apart. But a lot of it was, let's make fun of him. Let's make him look like a buffoon. Let's target against him. And that just drives this anger. Again, if you sit down, and I'm not saying everything's a face-to-face interview, but if you approach the other side's ideas, with some level of respect, no matter how ridiculous they are. Okay. And you rationally pick them apart.
I don't agree with that. I have to say, I think just thinking that, people will be smart enough to think for themselves is not going to happen, because people will pick a team before they even really care about the substance part of it. They'll pick a team, and that's their team. I'm Trump trained, baby, or I'm a Democrat, or I'm a Republican. That's their team. Then they rationalize backwards, right? So people aren't rational in the sense that they go, okay, what idea do I like? Okay, I like this, I like that, I'll vote here. No, they go, this is my team. What's my team saying? Okay, my team's saying, okay, whatever. This is the same thing, not to go way out of left field, but this is the same thing you see with Scientologists, for example, is they're in the church. They know that the church might be wrong, or this, that, but when they do public interviews, it's kind of like, okay, well, you really think that's true? Well, guess what? That's not true. That's not true. This is not true. They'll rationalize their way out of it. And so the same way you think maybe putting on Milo on Bill Maher might make him look dumb, stupid, whatever, he's fighting stronger for his team. And his team is what matters. I mean, he already has a huge team, I feel like, right? He must have millions of people.
Right, but teams aren't fixed. And so I think that in the long game, you make enough good points against a certain team. Okay. A certain portion of them are going to start questioning that team. Yeah. And they'll jump ship.
Okay, so what about the debates?
What about the debates?
That was that was as substance as we're going to get. Okay, just think about this for a second. Donald J. Trump, reality TV show host, real estate mogul, was on 2 political debates. Was it 2 or 3? 2 with Hillary Clinton. Secretary of State, First Lady, this, that, the other, senator. And he still managed to squeeze by, get by. It didn't look dumb. Well, he might have looked dumb here and there, but I think people would say he won the second debate. And so I don't think, unless you sit down for someone for like 10 hours and you really hammer through all these substantive parts, people look at clickbait. People look at the 5-second diss he had against Clinton. They don't look at ideas. And guess what? They look at the 5-second thing. They're on the border. They don't know which side. Nah, man, I'm on the Trump train because he made that really good diss on Hillary Clinton, how she would be in jail if he was president. People don't look at the substance part. And I feel like maybe we should let that happen as a free market. We should let people be as dumb as they want, because in reality, that's what's going to end up shooting them in the foot anyways, right? So if we let people be as dumb, and that's part of my free speech argument, is if we let people be as dumb as possible, that's only to their disbenefit.
That's fair. I mean, I don't even know if it's letting people be as dumb as possible. I think part of the obligation of the media, and I think it's sort of been lost, is put out the rational arguments, put out the good arguments. There's a lot of people that won't follow them. You're absolutely right. People think emotionally. That's probably why Trump won.
Exactly.
You know, but I mean, you got to also acknowledge that Clinton wasn't necessarily rationally responding to all his arguments. She's making talking points too, right? But no one's actually responding to each other.
Like, that's my argument. How in public office in the States, how do you possibly engage people in substantive argumentation anymore? There's no way in the media age we live in the 5-second vines we live in the quick Instagram posts we live in the Facebook lives and YouTube live. People don't care about 3-hour-long substance debate to see who's going to win. They care about whether or not their team is going to win and who made the better diss.
Right. But maybe that projects a new responsibility to not just put forth good ideas, but to be concise and to synthesize. Maybe you don't get to have people listen to you for 3 hours and sit down and take notes on each candidate and then debrief afterwards and have a little chit chat and then call their mom. Like, maybe that's not going to happen.
Okay, so propaganda. So that's when we talk about propaganda. In propaganda, literally, that is the definition of what we're talking about, I feel like, because in a weird way, the same way people pick teams and stuff is the same way that agendas get through, right? Because if we were totally rational about every single thing, we would have so many contradictions in every, I'm not going to support Bernie because if I'm being totally rational, I'm not going to support Bernie even though I think he's genuine, I think he's nice, I think he means well. I don't support his economic policy, fiscal policy, blah, blah, blah. If I'm being rational, there's too many contradictions, right? Mm-hmm. And so nothing would get done. So the way I think we've evolved to bypass that is pick teams.
Absolutely. It's efficiency.
Right.
But I still think, look, right in the U.S., there's 2 teams.
Right.
Okay. There's 2 teams, then people in the middle who don't know who to cheer for. Right. Mm-hmm. Or people on either side, whatever you want to say. Mm-hmm. There's 2 teams. You can still push either of those 2 teams to adopt different positions, not easily and not by huge increments in any one election. But I think a lot of ideas, it's a progress. I mean, where do you think Western liberal democracy came from? Like thousands, but even in recent years, hundreds of years of development. Those ideas didn't all just come from the top down. Okay. You're putting ideas out there constantly. The better ideas, they get more and more traction. And I do believe eventually that brings out the best. I think our society right now, far from perfect, but I think that is a testament to that process of you give free speech the platform. That gives everyone the platform. All ideas on equal footing. Yeah. And eventually the better ones will float to the top.
Okay, so divide and conquer, we talk about ideas float to the top. I don't know if I believe in, well, divide and conquer works, but I don't know if I always. Do you think that's true in the long run, that the best ideas always prevail? Because how long are we talking? Are we talking 200 years? 300 years?
Absolutely, I'm talking long game. Short run, you're absolutely right. There's no way. You obviously, it goes like this, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, if you look at where we've come in the last couple hundred years. Slavery gone, women vote.
Okay, fine.
At least formal legal equality for everyone.
I'll buy that argument. By the way, thanks for the share on Periscope. We're on Periscope also. Thanks for the hearts, guys. So, I think when we talk about, I'm not sure if I buy the idea really that the best ideas always come to the top, because but I don't have to agree with that notion. But I do agree with your sentiment that we shouldn't dictate what comes to the top. I think that's what we agree on. You think the best ideas come to the top. I think we should. Well, you know what? This is the philosophical question: is what's best, right? How do you define that? Is best by my standards, your standards? By definition, I guess you could argue the best ideas come to the top because by the very definition, they're the one at the top, so they have to be the best, right? That's a free market argument, I guess.
Right.
Is because they're at the top means that they had to have been the best.
They should be there.
Exactly. So I guess I can buy that part of it. But I feel like if we're talking subjective, what is best, that's more of a philosophical point. Is I don't think the best ideas always will rise to the top unless we're talking in a free market sense where the best have to have been the best to get there.
I think that's fair, but I think part of the thing you brought up is who decides what's best. I think the huge issue these days is the left has taken it upon themselves to decide what's best. And I think it's part of the reason you have animosity on the right. It's part of the reason, if not the reason, Trump won, because the left just dismisses the other side because they've decided.
Do you think that the left believes that they're the moral high horse left? So do you think the left really believes that they do they say explicitly my ideas are the best? Is that a thing?
In all intents and purposes, all the time.
Okay, so I think
look at how they painted Trump voters. And I'm not saying I'm a Trump supporter, but look at how they painted them. They painted half of America as bigoted, dumb rednecks who are 50 years behind the times.
That's exactly it. And as soon as you start hitting a group of people, you mobilize them. Right. So you mobilize a group of people and you get them stronger and you get them better and you get them faster. The stream is skipping. Thanks for sharing the stream, guys. Really appreciate it. I'll go on YouTube and watch our live stream there. If it's not working, it
should be a little better.
Just go on YouTube and search up The Rational Rebels and we'll be live. The Rational Rebels. All political. Yeah. So okay, let's talk about that for a second. How's the left chosen for others? Don't they just have their own? How is the left chosen for others? Don't they have their own? I'm not sure. Okay, so if we talk about Congress, let's talk about Congress for a second.
Yeah.
Do you think, and Justin here, you go on YouTube.com, search up Rational Rebels. Okay, I'm saying The Rational Rebels. Justin's in law school, okay? So he's going to be a lawyer in 2 years. Do you think there's a problem in Congress that all of them are lawyers? Because they're lawyers by trade, and I mean, obviously you'd know this, is that they have that's a Yeti. So they have a topic, and they don't know which side they're going to argue for, but they're trained guys to be able to fight for both sides and to not be, take a moral position on it. So do you think that's a problem in Congress?
I think that, lawyers are trained
Now we type it in
to play
The Rational Rebels, guys.
Just write it on this piece of paper and hold it up to you.
Okay. You want to write down?
Okay, lawyer. Yeah. Do I have to write it backwards or what?
Maybe the microphone wasn't working. No, you don't have to write it backwards.
Okay, lawyers are trained to play a two-side game, right? And so what you do, you do the best you can for your side. But I think this is all analogous to politics. So in law, at least the theory is you have two sides who go as hard as they can for their respective team, and then the judge sits in the middle.
Okay.
And is supposed to sort out the truth. Not perfect system.
So how does that translate to politics then?
Politics in the States is the exact same thing. You have two sides. They're both going as hard as they can for their own team. The people in the middle, who are really the deciding voters, the people in the middle, take what they will from either side, and are supposed to, theoretically at least, pull together the best ideas.
Okay.
So the quote unquote truth, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, I honestly think it's a problem that the profession is drastically overpopulated with lawyers. At the same time, when you're writing laws, there's a reason that most of them are lawyers, because that stuff doesn't make sense. It takes years of reading that type of language, and so in terms of actual lawmaking, that specific part of the job.
But that can be outsourced, right? So
absolutely. So maybe it should be. Maybe lawyers should work in the offices, but then again, who are we to say what profession people in public office should be, right? I think obviously the free market's worked in a way where lawyers are either attracted or they have a better conversion rate. They have the skills probably
to get into Congress. And you have people that voted for Trump because they realized that you have corrupt politician A, B, C, D, E. Okay, you know what? I'm gonna spite all of them by voting for some guy that has paid no dues, has done nothing about it, and on top of that, acts like me, shits on people, and I think when we talk about free speech and we talk about Bill Maher, I think he might be the prime example of free speech. Because if we don't have, let's say if America didn't have free speech, you would never have an uprising of Trump, right? Especially against, can you believe that some guy came and beat everyone in the establishment?
Right. No, it's absolutely, if nothing else, it's a testament that democracy is real in the United States.
Yes.
You know, it might very well be a tightly run game by a core group of people, but at the end of the day, that system can still get, you know, a stick jammed in their spokes.
Well, to be fair, it had to have been a billionaire though.
It's not everyone. Like I said, it's still a tightly run game. Yeah. But if nothing else,
you can see how it could be an outsider.
Yeah.
Right. And to be fair, it could have been Bernie, guys. I mean, it doesn't matter.
Right.
Right. So
arguably it would have been if.
Yeah.
But we won't go into the whole DNC.
Yeah. You know. Yeah. So I think that's pretty good that we did that.
Other side of that.
Oh, you're right. So so if you guys were watching, thanks for watching. Click down, subscribe. We're gonna be continuing talking about, you know, politics, free speech today, and we're gonna talk about the general mishappenings really of the White House. So
can I steal some of your water?
That's yours. So when we talk about the White House,
it's a good host. Right?
So when we talk about the White House, guys, the corruption that the media is saying is in the White House right now, I'm not sure is there. I think what's happening is, and that's why part of the reason why you see such, guys, wake up if you guys haven't realized this, is because he was a part of the media. You know, he was not the owner, but he ran Breitbart, right? So these guys all know each other. You know, Rupert Murdoch knows Steve Bannon. The CNN guy knows this guy. You know, they all know each other. So what happens is they see, oh, one of this guy's, you know, chief strategist for Trump. What do? To everyone else, no, I bet you nobody knew who Steve Bannon was, right? No one knew who Steve Bannon was.
I had no idea.
So what happens is these guys are like, shit, I know this guy. No one else knows him. Let's have a media hit on him. And so all these people that follow through with the hate and stuff, they really do. I bet you if you question them on what don't you like about Steve Bannon? Have you ever heard an interview about him? And what policies do you disagree with that he had? They probably couldn't name anything.
Sure.
And personally, guys, if you guys haven't watched this already, go on YouTube and search up Steve Bannon speech. And it's a speech that he made in Orlando, Florida in 2011 in the summer. And it's hard to disagree with his American approach if you're a nationalist, right? So if you agree that there should be a nation called America and that has rules, the stuff that he says is not so, you know, right wing, not so extremist. What he basically says is, look, the Fed has been bankrupting average middle class Americans, the middle class, right? Inflation's been through the roof. People are not getting a raise in the last 30 years. The housing market was let down. He's saying all these Americana values, right? So it's so funny to see people that hate him but have really never seen any of his views. And it's easy to paint someone literally that looks like a villain as a villain. And he does look like a villain. You know, you gotta give him that.
Right.
So I think you gotta open up your eyes and see, sure, you can still hate him. I give you permission. You know, I don't care. But before you hate someone, make sure you do the research on whether or not you should be hating them or not. That's all I gotta say.
Right. And then but it's a product of the team game again, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and I'm not even a fan of Bannon, but, you know, a lot of the hate he gets may be deserved. A lot of the hate he gets comes from a de facto response because, you know, this is my team.
Right. Okay.
And
so
you're right that people probably don't know.
People probably don't know. I don't think so. And I don't know if that's a bad thing or not. You know, I'm still debating on whether or not teams are good or not.
Well, there's, you know, at a certain point you need a team because you're going to research every single issue, right?
Not even that. Are you going to have your 2 feet in 4 camps? Like, that's not possible, right? You can't have this libertarian value, this liberal value, and then this Republican value. Like, you only have 2 feet, right? So you got to be all in.
But that's the problem with this system, because I feel like a lot of people do have 4 feet in 4 different camps.
Okay, so
I do. So absolutely.
So
but the way
a ranking system. Now we're talking about electoral reform. What do you think about that?
I don't know enough about the U.S. system to restructure it, but I'm just saying the fact that you have a two-party system, it lends itself to this team game. And
now I'm gonna play. Actually, I probably disagree with you. I'm not gonna play devil's advocate. Mathematically, and this is a class I took in university. Mathematically, the most efficient outcome can ever happen if you have two options. Right. By definition, by adding, and there's a bunch of mathematical reasons behind this, but basically think about it this way. You got two options, right? People can either vote for A or vote for B. In that way, it's what they call the pro-efficient outcome is it's gonna be what it's gonna be, right? So if you have three people, right, then what happens is Al Gore and Bush in 2001. You have Bush and Al Gore virtually tied. Bush wins by a little bit, but then you realize, third party in Florida took X million of votes, and if those people had actually voted for the first two, they would have voted for Al Gore, and Al Gore would have won.
Yeah.
So by definition, you can only have an efficient outcome if there's two things, or two things, in general. I mean, so there's this mathematical kind of conflict in should we give. If you think about it, by giving more options, you're just giving a perception, an illusion of freedom, more choice. But what you're really doing is giving a less efficient outcome to the people.
But is efficiency the only thing that matters?
Well, efficiency is one thing I named, but by definition, it follows all its transitivity, follows a bunch of different other values that I think are important. And I think efficiency in this context also means best.
Best.
Right.
So we get the best outcome. We only have two choices.
Best meaning it adheres to the most amount of criteria that we can evaluate all of our voting systems with.
Right. What?
But unless you value, I guess, more choices, but then, that doesn't fit into the model.
Well, I think, okay, one, I value more choices, and I think this is maybe the future, unless politicians find a way to stop it. I think there needs to be more referendum-style direct democracy. So now I also recognize this can be dangerous, and people can be swayed real quick with low information.
Referendum style?
But referendum style as in you whip out your phone and there's certain issues we just ask people.
Oh.
Because right now the way the system works when you only have two teams is, you have to pick one.
Yeah, okay.
Because you agree with them on more things than the other team.
Yeah.
But you still might hate like 60% of the stuff they do.
But then the question comes
if you could find a way to break it down
in the first place. Then why don't have a referendum on every single thing?
Because there's certain things you can't have referendum on because you need some cohesive administration of a state. At least in the world we know today. So things would break down.
What advantage would the incumbent party have to have referendums, if at all? Probably
they
nothing.
Wouldn't. That's the problem. You have to get there.
So
there's absolutely they don't want it. The parties in power hate it. Gotcha. It's like in Canada. Look at Canada, where you have the Liberal Party promises to essentially rejig our whole electoral system, which is it's first past post voting. We don't need to get into it, but essentially it's one of a few common ways of voting in Western liberal democracies. And anyways, they promised to rejig the whole thing and launch a national inquiry. And now, they get a massive majority, drastically disproportionate compared to like the popular vote they got. Mm-hmm. So they win. The system serves them well. And now, we're not doing electoral reform anymore.
So
of course, because you won, because the system works for you. So why it's not going to be reformed from the inside.
Exactly.
So I don't know how you fix it. But
what is the process of? I don't know what the process of constitutional electoral reform would be in the States, but it definitely won't be easy. I feel like
talking about it really, which honestly surprises me. I would have thought the one.
No, they're talking about how they want the popular vote. The left wants the popular vote now to elect the president. All of a sudden,
but even then, I feel like the conversation is directed towards anger that it's not a popular vote system, rather than push to truly reform it. I don't hear anyone, within the Democratic Party who's actually pushing a hardcore legislative.
I don't think it. Not first of all, I don't think they can.
They can't. You're right.
But second of all, I think there've been petitions going out, man. Like there've been people that said on, I think, change.org, change the electoral system to popular vote.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not even gonna get into whether or not I think that's better for the states, because there's obviously the argument that then small states get completely ignored.
Yeah. And so
we're not advocating any one system as preferential to another.
I really think the Electoral College is preferential to the popular vote. So the people that say, since when did people start living on land, right? Why does land get to vote? Well, land gets to vote because land means food source. Land means a natural resource that you tap into, right? So land is used for agriculture and has been predominantly until the recent century, where it's now only 2% of American land is for agriculture because of the Industrial Revolution, right? But before that, the vast majority of the land was needed for agriculture use. And so that's why land has predominantly had votes, because the last thing you want is to have a popular vote and then Hillary and Trump only going to Chicago, San Francisco, LA, New York, and probably that's it, right? So I think just going to those 5 cities or 4 cities could land them the presidency without them even ever going anywhere else.
Right. And I think it is a problem. And land gets to vote also because your land happens to be divided up into a bunch of little lands that have self-governing systems. And so if your constitution acknowledges that, so does your president needs to, right? Like, unless you abolish the state system or abolish the states and you have one big country.
The whole premise in the United States is literally states.
So that's what I'm saying. That's why states have to be represented. That's why you need some system which isn't just popular vote.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Because again, as long as you have states, that's a good point. A state system and a federal.
No, that's a good point.
Not a federal system, but a union between states. Yeah, they have to have a say and they have to be acknowledged.
But I think what we can agree with is there might have to be a reassignment of different electoral points for states.
Or you could just give more power to the states, like the right ones. And then it's not as much of an issue whether or not, the national government pays enough attention to them, because they already control most of it.
So then I guess why we need elections, right? That's the whole point.
Well, you need state elections, and then you have districts, and that's the same problem all over again.
I think the United States is very unique in that, they do have states, and that's very unique to any country because you have mini countries, right? Basically, it's mini countries. And so at least they're supposed to be given as much power as mini countries. Disband the union. And I think the United States, that's why it's thrived, is because there has been new ruler. So I think that's why they've thrived also, is because they're able to have this, Texas be really good at this certain thing, cotton ginning or whatever, Louisiana be really good at that. And then they're able to have Massachusetts and New England be really good in technology and this. And the combination, and then Hawaii is really good at attracting tourists and this, and California's tech and Silicon Valley. It's because of the very nature that you have these states with different rules, different types of people, that as functioning one big thing, that is why they're so, that's why everyone wants to go to the states and everyone wants to be part of the states.
And there's 2 other, I think, big benefits of the state-based system. One is that it gives individuals who are mobile within the great U.S., you can pick and choose to some degree. I mean, you got to have enough money to have a car and to be able to drive, but you can pick and choose the type of culture you want to live in, the type of city, the type of job, the type of social welfare net, all that kind of stuff. The other thing, which political scientists talk about all the time, is you have, over 50 little policy-making experiments going on at any one time. And so, one state takes a leap of faith, implements this one policy. How about legalizing pot? Couple states go out on a limb, go for it.
Yeah.
Other states sit back and watch. Let's see how this goes. And all of a sudden, you didn't have to have the whole country commit, but you've got these little experimentation zones, and it worked there. Oh, that's great. Oh, look at the tax revenue. Oh, look, people aren't dying in car accidents. Oh, maybe we'll do that too.
Right.
So I think that's a huge benefit.
Yeah, I never thought about that, but then I guess people could say, you know, what works in Colorado might not work in Tennessee.
That's true, but it's better than having to go all or nothing implementing national policies because what works in Colorado might not work in Tennessee. So guess what? State system, they don't have to do the same thing.
And so let's extrapolate that. So if we think the states, you know, we're ad lib here, right? So if we think the state system, you know, having 50 states, DC, you know, Puerto Rico, if we think that is good because, you know, it allows for mobilization, it allows for, you know, policy testing, it allows for new ideas to spread, blah, 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 then I guess by definition, we're globalists because we feel like, definitely not, by the way. So by definition, if you think about it, though, you remove all these abstract borders, right? And we have, you know, it's never going to work. And I don't advocate for it, but if you remove everything, why do you think that doesn't work? Is if we take, let's say, the entire world. And so some people have this view is they feel like, how can you agree that the states are so good if you combine them together, but then you don't agree for combining Canada and Mexico and this, then the other, and allowing for free trade and all that? And so what do you think about that?
I think the key point there is that there's a driving ideology and set of values that binds those states together. You don't just dissolve the borders into nothingness. There's a union which is literally bound together by certain things. Why it works. It's like Canada as well. You know, you have a federal system. You have provinces which have, you know, some degree of autonomy over themselves, and then you have federal government. Right. But at the same time, people think of themselves as Canadian. There are shared Canadian values, and so it all together. You try and do that with the world the way it is at this point in time, it doesn't work because there's not enough continuity. There's not enough unity and sameness to unify under one system. Other than the EU, that the EU tried, and to some degree there is this European idea of self, but not enough, and it's already sort of peeling off.
Yeah, so you're saying it's too diverse, whether that be in ideologically or
culturally, religiously, politically, historically.
So I guess by definition, then the best unions are the ones that come together by themselves.
Yes.
So best unions are the ones that come naturally. It's like, hey, why don't we just why aren't we one big union, man? Like, come on, we should be. Not all right, hey, do you want to be in a union? Do you want to be in a union? You know, like the European Union is a union because proximity.
And a bunch of elites decided that it was economically beneficial and it's not.
It might be economically beneficial.
Yeah, no,
for poor countries.
Okay, it might benefit the upper classes in all those countries.
I'm not sure if it benefits the upper class as much as it benefits middle class workers from Poland being able to transfer over to the UK. And
I think anyone with an investment portfolio living in the EU is a fan of the union.
So, okay, so do you think so?
It's the lower class workers in England who are pissed off that they just lost their jobs.
So does Baltic and Balkan
to people.
According to the people, I don't know how you can dictate on whether you should be like Canada. Okay, let's talk about Canada and the United States. Canada and the United States culturally, you know, for the vast majority are very similar, but they also have their stark differences, right?
Like Canada's socialist.
Canada is more socialist. We're not socialist, right? Thank God. But we're more socialist. We have more social programs. But I don't see any Canadians saying, "Hey, man, we really want to be part of America." I don't think any the Canadians value themselves on what's different about us.
As distinct. But that's why we're not a North American Union or whatever.
Right. And I think we can't have Canada. Oh, Kevin O'Leary, 20. That's right.
Nah, dude, Maxime Bernier.
Actually,
that's my call.
I'm actually helping Kevin on his campaign. I'll tell you what.
Oh, on air or no? Is that low key?
On air, I emailed him. So.
Oh yeah, you mentioned that.
Yeah.
We'll get to that.
So I think. We don't talk about that. So, okay, Canada, right? as much as I think Canada and the United States might be, like, if Canada was let's say, a state of the United States, it would be like a California mixed with a California mixed with
a caliphate? Is that what you
a Colorado?
A caliphate.
A
nice.
Colorado. A Colorado.
Retitle this video. U.S. caliphate.
Obviously, like a Washington, but a Colorado mixed with a California. You know?
Yeah.
Which kind of equals Washington, actually, if you think about it. Anyways.
Okay, we're talking from Vancouver, okay? So, of course, it's like Washington.
Okay.
We still have our own Midwest, okay?
That's fair. No, guys, no caliphate, please don't. Again, that's Justin. Seriously. Okay. So, back to the. Oh, you live in Russia. Cool. Let's not talk about that first one. So, Michael Flynn, right? So, Michael Flynn has resigned. That's official news. And he resigned over political pressure, they say, from Trump, and Trump asked him to resign over connections to Russia. Now, we have a friend from Russia here. Do you think there's a legitimate concern in the Trump administration that the Russians might be meddling in any sort of thing? And I'd love to get I'd love to get the Russian dude on this, or dudette.
Don't assume gender.
I'd love to get your view on what do you guys think about Trump? Okay. So, yeah, do you think there is political pressure? Do you think there's political ties to Russia? Big question. It's a huge question.
Political ties in that the White House is collaborating
or
with Moscow,
or
Moscow is meddling in. Why don't we go to the election first?
Okay.
And then talk about now.
Okay, what do you think?
Because I haven't heard anything that suggests that, the Moscow or the Kremlin and the White House have some plot together.
No, but what I'm saying is there's people slipped through the cracks in the Trump administration that Trump may or may not be aware of that do have, like, obviously, if you look at Rex Tillerson, sure. I'm not saying he's a Russian or a Russian loyalist. What I'm saying is he obviously has connection to Russia in that he's done deals with Russia. He's been next to Putin in these award ceremonies and whatever else. But I'm not talking about those kind of ties. I'm talking about undercover, secret operation ties or agenda pushing ties. What do you think?
I honestly feel like it doesn't extend past perhaps any business relations that Trump may have had in Russia in the past. Because isn't there documentation of him having some like business connections in Russia?
Trump he's always said he doesn't have any, doesn't say he never had any, but he always talks in the present tense. I don't have any.
Right.
But I think my personal view on that is what kind of people will have ties with Russia, right? Is either be top business leaders.
Sure.
In America. What kind of people will have ties with Russia are top business leaders, people that are not in politics, right? And those specific, if you just look at those two types of people, those will be the exact type of people that will know Trump, and that Trump will be more inclined to push in his administration because he literally knows them. Like, if we talk about business leaders don't care if they're doing a deal in Russia or whatever. They just want to make money, right? That's their whole thing.
Right.
Two, the second type of person might be the people that don't have political connections in the States. So that might be anti-establishment type of people, which is literally Trump's type of people. So is it just a selection bias that Trump hangs out with people that are more likely to do business stuff with Russia? Or is it that Trump has this whole Russian secret agenda?
I think it's honestly the first one. I don't think, what purpose would it serve him, and why would he? Why would he have built this whole scheme before, deciding to run for president, which seemed to be a pretty spur of the moment thing? Probably not. So then did he build a whole scheming network in the last 2 years? Probably not. And I just don't buy it. I think especially since he's not a foreign policy guy who's gonna
but do you think that,
work with Putin and has a whole Middle East agenda, who he's now working with the Russians, and now we're gonna have collaborate. He cares about the states. You might think you don't like his ideas, but he's very US focused. I don't think he's been wading out into, Eastern Europe.
No, but I think the people that do have problems with Trump's potential ties to Russia is that Trump is malleable, right? He likes to be agreeable with people he likes.
He likes to be popular.
And people can take advantage of that and, pose as, these friendly business leaders and whatever, but really undermine him and undermine the American people and go through the back door onto certain things they want pushed through. And so people have that view is not literally that it might not be Trump. Some people obviously think it might be Trump, but some people really think he's, more malleable than people think, and that he's not tough on his friends, and his friends could be the ones backstabbing him.
That may be far more plausible. I don't buy the argument that Trump himself is involved. Maybe some people high up within his administration have ties, but I mean, the other thing you want to think about is, at what point can we ease these tensions with Russia? I mean, I'm not totally adverse to softening relations between the two countries. Obviously,
okay.
Putin's regime is not, something we necessarily want to support.
So you think de-escalation is, that's funny, because the Democrats always said the Republicans are going to start a war with Russia. The Republicans are going to start a war with Russia. And then the Republican Trump goes power. No, now you're too friendly with Russia. Now you're too friendly with Russia. It's like they want to play both sides of the card.
Sure. And again, I don't necessarily want to be friends with Russia,
but if being friends with Russia meant a genuine, let's say, friendship, and not a coercive backdoor thing happening where they're really undermining us, but we're pretending to be friends.
Right.
But if it meant a genuine friendship, I think nobody would disagree with being friends over being foes. But people can't trust them is what the problem is.
Yeah, and you might say, "Oh, we can never support a regime like Putin's, which
Saudi
is
Arabia.
Faux democracy."
How about
Exactly.
Saudi Arabia?
Until you stop, getting in bed with them, I don't think you're even allowed to make that argument.
Exactly. But yeah, I think we talked about this last podcast too. And thanks for watching, guys. Make sure you guys subscribe. We do have, political videos. This is just like kind of a fun podcast we do every month or so. But also, back to Saudi Arabia, we talked about this last podcast. It's very interesting that, I used to always think, okay, so we have this huge double standard. We stand up for women's rights. We stand up for this, anti-slave, and we stand up for workers' rights. We stand up for all great things. And then we're in bed with Saudi Arabia, and we're in bed. We talk about the Middle East now. How about that? Yeah. And so, if we're just looking at that, it's a huge contradiction. And so I've always been one to, been like, we don't really care about those things. We care about money. We care about oil. But I guess I've come to, more of a rational settlement on that. No, we got to sometimes make friends with the schoolyard bully to keep things down for everyone else.
I think you're absolutely right. I think it is easy to dismiss it simply as, oh, politicians legitimately don't care about anything, don't care about women, don't care about human rights. It's all oil money.
Sure.
I am sure that plays a part, but I'm also sure that the U.S., being in the position they are in, they like to have a friend in the Middle East. And they've decided and sort of latched on to Saudi Arabia as that friend. And they'd rather have some, if nothing else, an ear to the ground in terms of what's happening.
Well, Saudi Arabia was literally, Saudi Arabia, the nation, was literally made by the Americans. The central Saudi Arabia didn't exist, and then these Wahhabists in the Middle East all of a sudden found a bunch of oil, and they said, "Oh, we're actually might have a nation here." So the Americans jumped on it. They helped them to create this, this nation, and support them. And maybe that was because you want eyes and ears in the Middle East, but I really don't think they particularly care about the Middle East. But what they do care about is the natural resources at that time. At that time, that's what they cared about, is the natural resource there and how to control it, how to dictate who gets what, and make sure these certain terrorists, violent people don't get all the gas, so they don't make nuclear bombs and whatever else. But I think just the definition of Saudi Arabia is, and it's changed recently after 9/11, but it's made by the Americans. Saudi Arabia was created by the Americans and founded and funded by the Americans. And so after 9/11, what you started seeing though was more and more anti-American rhetoric in the Middle East, because they saw American influence penetrating into their Islamic faith. And so you saw this you saw both on the Sunni side and the Shia side, but more on the Sunni side, where you saw, these rogues in Saudi Arabia and stuff saw the Americans doing damage, whether that be in Yemen or whether that be fighting against the Iraqis, and they saw, hey, like, why are you always trying to kill all, like, everyone that's a part of our faith? We're going to go against that. We hate the Americans. And then so you do see a sentiment of anti-Americanism all across the globe today.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think it's definitely exactly what you said. It's frustration at, this feeling that the U.S. is meddling too much. So then that begs the question, at this point, do they totally step back? Because then guess who steps in? Russia. I think Putin would love to be able to, dip his hand in there even more. You don't think so?
No.
Okay, if the U.S. walked out of the Middle East right now, but China has no interest there. You think they walk in?
I'm talking about the world.
Okay, I'm talking about Middle East. If the U.S. walks away today, washes their hands of it, and says, you know what,
I'll tell you exactly who
touch nothing here.
Guess who steps in?
Putin.
Iran.
I'm talking about outside influence, but sure, Iran, because Iran and Putin aren't they homies?
Yeah.
I don't know the details, but
so Iran and Russia are allies, but strategically more than ideologically.
Sure, no, absolutely. But that's Putin's same idea. He wants someone in the game, He wants someone there, he can get the intel, he can push a little influence.
Yeah.
There's these great powers. They want to dip their hand in things. They want to just feel it out, what's going on.
Guys, and so realize this, when Obama left the White House, he strategically did a few things that I don't think enough people realize. One, he passed that Iran deal despite not being the best of terms, right? Unfreezing. So what happened is they did the Iran deal. So they unfreezed, I think, $400 billion worth of assets that were basically, Iranian money across the globe that were freezed because of of this nuclear building started doing and the sanctions they placed on them in accordance. Mm-hmm. But so they unfreezed all the assets. Mm-hmm. On top of that, they gave him a $100 billion cash advance.
Bonus.
But why did Obama do that? I think is a better question. And I think I know why now. Because Obama anticipated the next administration might be pro-Kremlin. And if that ever happens, we have to make sure. So let's say if and also the Saudis, he wanted to keep the Saudis at bay. So the way he does that without American interference is you kind of give the leg up to the Iranians. And you go, all right, here's a little bit more money, just to keep the Saudis quiet a little bit, and then you fight your own fight.
So are you saying that he softened up with Iran in order to try to...
I haven't said the major thing yet.
Okay.
Iran, he softened up Iran because of, Saudi Arabia, but the main thing was Israel. Obama, as you could probably find out, is not very pro-Israel.
Jewish. Is he Jewish?
No, he's not very pro-Israel. Oh. So obviously, he doesn't particularly like Israeli politics. And so Israel is gaining a lot of power because, despite being so small, they have a lot of backing, right? And they have a lot of funding.
Huge backing from the right in the United States.
Exactly.
Huge.
And so Obama strategically gave that deal out to keep the Israelis at bay, keep them a little bit quiet, and have a counterforce to the Israelis.
Wait, why? You think that he let Iran sort of back into the global game in order to keep Israel quiet?
No, not like quiet, but to keep them from
to counterbalance their power.
To counterbalance power, and for them to continue doing all these settlements and basically keeping their ego at bay. And the Israelis not going, screw all this. We're gonna build all these settlements. We're gonna fuck with Saudi Arabia. We're gonna do that. No, we're gonna join with the we're gonna fuck the Palestinians here. We're gonna make settlements on the West Bank. We're gonna do this, that. So Obama secretly, you know, this was probably his under motive, was not because he knows Trump's coming in, or in the future there will be more funding to Israel. Well, it's Hillary is very pro-Israel also, right? So he knows Israel, and personally, you know, his parents are Muslim, so he's going to have this sentiment towards pro-Muslim. But he has this inkling that Israel is getting too strong, is being too cocky for their own good. So the way he does that is you give Iran their economy back.
So in your view, then, what portion of the decision to make that deal was governed by these type of considerations? You know, counterbalancing Israel, altering the power balance, maybe, you know, trying to diminish the hold that Russia has on Iran by sort of, you know, saying like, hey, we're here too. How much is motivated by those considerations, and how much is it legitimately thinking that this is the best course of action regarding nuclear concern? Because I think, whether you agree with the policy or not, I think this is legitimately believed, and I may agree.
You know what?
It's a way, and maybe the best way available to really try and counteract the nuclear concern.
If he really cared about the nukes, he wouldn't impose self-regulation in the contract. So the Iranians can, the United Nations, I think it's who has this watchdog group that can go into certain parts of Iran's factory or nuclear areas and check everything's good. But there's certain areas that you literally can't check with, and if you want to check, you have to give them 3 months head notice, and then you can go check. So I don't know. Maybe those are just because he didn't have enough leverage at the table when he was making the deal or whatever. But
there was a lot of pressure to get a deal done, and I'm sure Iran knew that. And so I'm sure when the clock was ticking,
there goes your leverage, right?
That's the thing. That's what happens when you're negotiating with a state that isn't beholden to the same political pressures. You know, the people you're negotiating with basically are beholden to themselves. And I think they don't have parties and voters at home pressuring, you know, to get something, to come back with something.
And you know, I definitely think, I'm just gonna write this down. I definitely think you're right when you say that. Yeah, you make a deal with Iran, you get their economy back, you get them a little more self-sufficient. Maybe they do distance themselves from Russia, right? Distancing himself from Russia is good for the United States. Obama thinks. He thinks, okay, Russia and Iran don't get too cozy, keeps the Israelis at bay. It's better to just make a deal to unfreeze their economy. And plus, Obama likes to be viewed as positive by a group of people.
So he gets to come back with something that you don't dismiss the fact that you get to come back and say, look, I'm victorious. I did it.
And here's what I did. Iranians do love Obama for that.
I'm sure they do.
And they were pro-Obama.
I know people who have family members who are in really tough spots because of the sanctions, and those assets got unfrozen.
Oh yeah,
I'm not gonna name them, but you know, those assets got unfrozen, and they were, you know, celebratory.
Really?
Yeah. So I mean, it's huge, but I don't know how much that diffuses overall animosity towards the states.
And
it's like, oh, thanks for unfreezing the sanctions that you put on us.
Right. Yeah. But you know, this is the problem actually when you talk about free speech, is it's so free, right? That it's actually to the detriment of the nation. Because look at it.
What do you mean?
Exactly. So at first it sounds like, what are you saying? United States is so free that the Iranian public know what the American people are thinking at any time and what the general consensus is in America. It's like having a family fight in when your family goes out with a bunch of other families and you guys are all together, and let's say you and your sister started fighting with your parents and then everyone was watching. You know how awkward that gets if you have a family fight in public, right? Like with other families, you know, and you're like, oh my God, my parents are fighting in front of everyone. Like, this is so embarrassing. That's literally what American politics is. It's an open door for everyone. Iranian politics is an open door. Who knows what's happening?
Far from it.
So look at that distinction where it's like American politics, open door, everyone can see your family fighting. It's like, it's very detrimental actually, because it's hard to get certain things passed, and it's hard to do certain things with an element of surprise, which I guess what Donald Trump was all about.
Right. When you have an obligation to your population for transparency, and they all get to say whatever they want, it definitely gives an advantage to states who are, very much run from this tight-knit group of, whatever they are.
Yeah, like Russia.
Like Russia, you have these oligarchs and, basically you're king for all intents and purposes.
Yeah.
And, they get to see, what's political sentiment in the U.S. Exactly. Oh, guess what? We know they're not putting troops on the ground because people are going to hate it. So you definitely, it puts you at a disadvantage in certain situations. It just so happens the U.S. is, at least militarily, probably the most powerful state ever in correspondence to anyone. So you could argue China's getting big, but the point being that they have enough clout that they can still throw their weight around despite that disadvantage.
How long is that going to last? Because that was Britain, and look at Britain now.
Well, I think the U.S. is already on the downturn.
Yeah,
but
really?
I think in terms of world involvement, in terms of meddling in affairs and casting this wide net and trying to control the happenings of the world, I think that they're already that peak, like Britain was. But look at Britain now. I argue Britain's in a great place politically. I think that they're not as dominant.
Yeah.
But I think they have a healthy society, and obviously, they're pushing for even less involvement, pulling back from the EU, right? So you have Brexit. Well, that's your people saying, hey, focus on us. We want us. That's the thing. You might, the people running the state might love to have all this power, but at the end of the day, the people, if you're not addressing their needs, they don't give a shit. So they don't care if you're controlling this and that, and even if global stability, people are like, hey, what about us? What about me?
Right. So it's an open door, but for the public.
Sure. No. And again, when it comes to negotiating deals with other governments, yes, it's definitely a disadvantage.
I think that's what Trump sees, really, is he's like, guys, what are you doing? We're having a fight in public. Can you just shut up? I'll deal with it. We'll get it when you get home. Like, when your parents have done that before, it's like when they start yelling at you, let's say in public.
Right. Like, just wait.
Just like, when I'm going home.
None from my friends, Mom.
Exactly. So okay. So let's predict. So did Britain, when Britain was as dominant as it was, were they a free democracy like the Americans were? Do you have to be a democracy to be the Britain or the Americans?
No, because Britain was Britain for hundreds of years when they weren't. Women had literally no rights, and they're facilitating slavery all over the globe. So they were a huge global power.
Okay, but despite those two very big things, were they a democracy?
I don't think you call them democracy. Yeah,
because obviously the Chinese aren't a democracy. So the point I'm trying to make is, do you have to be a democracy at a certain level to be a world power?
No.
The world power, not a world power, but the world power. Because if you do, then I'm trying to filter out to see who the next world power is.
I don't think so. Because think about, so we have a globalized world, but think about before we got fully globalized. There was none of the Asian states were global powers, but China and Japan ran the whole area. Well, those two states combined ran basically all of Asia. Were they democracies? No. What about when the USSR ran all of Eastern Europe? Was it? No. You don't need to be democracy to be the powerful state. I don't think so at all.
But you didn't run. I'm talking about the world, right? So Britain ran the world, undoubtedly. The Americans do run the world, undoubtedly, and they have. But I'm saying the world, right? I'm not saying a region. A region
you have to be a democracy,
right?
I don't see why you would. I mean, I'm damn glad that the world is run by a democracy.
I think you might have to. I don't know why. I don't think I can rationalize it right now, but I think there's something to democracy that inherently allows you to come to a higher level than an elite making, military decisions. Like, you don't see like a regime like North America or North Korea, getting huge.
True. No, I think maybe long game. If you're saying long game, you want to, develop a stronger society, then yeah, I think based on our history, our recent history, democracy helps you get there. But you go back to the age of empires.
Are they more stable?
So many empires.
You're saying democracies are more stable in their structure than totalitarian regimes, because they can flip it at any second. if nations were painted with building blocks, would democracy have like a lot of nooks and crannies and built up, and then totalitarian would be a single row of blocks that you can knock out at any time?
Yeah, I think you're right, but that row of blocks, that individual role, is like very well found. I mean, look at the Roman Empire. Yeah. You know, it's not a democracy, but still held power in that part of the world for hundreds of years, and we're at a peak of civilization.
But that wasn't the world, right? That wasn't the world.
But to them, it was the world.
Okay, fine. So I think we're at a precipice of globalization now that we'll have to see. You know, this is something we can predict, but nothing we can look back at and be like, okay, this is how it's always been, because we've never been able to contact everyone around. Like 1,000 years ago, the Iranians would have no contact with the Americans,
right?
Just by definition, right? And first of all, the Americans wouldn't be there, right? But Iranians would not even know the Americans existed. But today they call each other on the phone and they have fights without even ever seeing each other. And the only times they ever see each other is if they're going to go to war against each other, which is hilarious if you think about it, because it's not like Iranians are coming to America and then they're having arguments and then they're like, you know what? We hate all these people. We're going to go fight. It's like, no. This team did this to the other team that's over there. And so
then we like those guys because they're friends with these guys.
So we're going to call up
so that's not chill
to fly drones. Yeah. So it's the, like, that's another thing is like the amount of disconnect you have in military combats today is ridiculous. You know, you press a button and you very well know that that drone is going to go and kill this family that has one bad guy out of 14. Just press that button. You didn't really kill him, did you? That drone did it. That electric drone did it. It wasn't you. It wasn't me, Dick Cheney. You know, it wasn't me sitting on my evil chair. It was that drone that did it.
The drones is a whole, yeah, I mean,
diffusion of responsibility.
It takes the humanity out of it, right?
It takes humanity out of it.
It's a video game.
It's a video game.
So that's definitely concerning. The flip side is, you could argue there's some very dangerous people that you're taking out without having to put your own people at risk. While you're doing so, you're killing innocents and violating state sovereignty. So just so happens when you're the state and you're the states and you kind of run the world, you kind of just make your own rules. But yeah, drones are a huge problem, sure. But you can see why you use them. And of course, a democracy is going to use them. Because the last thing Obama wants is American soldiers dying. The last thing, or Trump or whoever's in the White House.
Right.
So how do you avoid that?
Yeah.
Drones are the perfect solution.
Definitely. Yeah, I guess you're right. It's double-edged sword again. You know, so many times that's the conclusion. It's a double-edged sword. Pick your side.
Pick one, yeah. It's too hard to know which is right.
I think, yeah, I think you're right. So what else do you want to talk about in relevant topics today? Anything particular we want to touch on?
What did we not cover? We did free speech. Did you get to the media? Or do you want to talk about that?
The media war?
Yeah.
What do you want to say? Do you want to have anything to say about that?
Well, you intro it.
Okay. So Trump, obviously, we know, is picking a lot of fights with basically anyone except Fox and Breitbart. And he's doing it on Twitter. And he is fine. I think overall he wants to be liked, right? I think that's his main weakness is when he sees people hating on him, he goes, no. You don't just hate on me without me hating on you back. You know, it's kind of like, you like me or you're going to get hated on by me.
Yeah, he wants people to be on his team. But if you're not,
he wants to be liked.
Hates you.
And so I'm going to read actually this tweet from him.
Twitter. See, I have a huge problem with the president even having a personal Twitter. I mean,
okay, so
why? Why would you give?
Okay, this is a prime example, guys. This is Andre Trump.
Someone just take his phone away, please.
Thank you for all of the nice statements on the press conference yesterday. Rush Limbaugh said one of the greatest ever. Fake media not happy. So in that, I just see insecurity, right? So you see this guy that's, you know, this classic guy that always wants to be liked by everyone. And so he's literally complimenting someone for complimenting him. Thank you for the nice statements on the press conference yesterday, right? So I mean, I get it. I see where because he's he's not a politician. He comes from like this TV show thing where he's all about ratings, and he's always been told by everyone around him that he's been loved, right? I don't think there's ever been a hater around Donald Trump until the last
That's what
2.5
happens
years.
with everyone you associate with is A, your family, or B, works for you, or C, both.
Exactly.
It's such an unnatural power imbalance, but in some ways it's no different than walking to the White House and you get a lot of yes, Mr. President, yes, Mr. President.
No, in the White House, sure. But you definitely
behind his back, no.
No, in the White House, sure. Turn on the TV, that's what he's seeing, right?
Right. And
for the first time ever, he's seeing that.
But it just makes him look weak. Like when he's tweeting out at 2 a.m. at, SNL and, ripping on them, saying they're not funny. Make him look strong? That's not but he can't help it. He can't help it. Like someone needs to take his phone away. I don't think he
actually he tweets it himself. His assistant tweets it. But yeah, I feel like definitely.
It sounds a lot like him.
No, it might sound like him, but he doesn't have a phone on him, I think.
Well, regardless, I really don't think that we should have this level of insight into, the immediate emotions of the president, of like the leader of the free world. Really? I feel like we should have a little more of a screen up.
But that's his whole shtick, Justin, is that he's
not good on the world stage, though. It might be good for your popularity contest at home, but it's not good in terms of representing the United States.
We'll get back to the family thing. Now, basically what he's done, in essence, is tear down is talk louder, right? So if let's use that analogy of a family gathering. You got 4 families, right? This fight was like, hey, guys, we're talking like this, right? Hey, I'm going to kick your ass when you get home, all right, Sonny? Now it's like, I'm going to kick your ass when you get home. And everyone's looking at you. Everyone's going, and you just keep on yelling at your kid. That's the equivalent of what before it was kind of like all the families are kind of just talking within themselves. And we're just like, Sonny, you're really going to get it. And like maybe this guy heard, but like, he doesn't really care. But now everyone's got their eyes on this family, like America, and they're just yelling at each other. That's what's happening. Yeah. So it's terrible on the world stage.
No, I think it's horrible. And I think it's not necessary. I know he has this impulse, but someone's got to shut it down. Someone's got to tell him.
Justin, this is free speech.
Sure. No, he has the right to do it, but free speech doesn't say I have to think everything people say is a good idea. You have the right to do that, but I don't think it's a good idea. Mm-hmm. I think it's a horrible idea.
So, okay. So do you think, let's say when he talks about the leaks, right? He's literally talking about sensitive information being leaked out of the FBI or the CIA. And instead of going to press conference saying, the classic president, I'm very concerned about these leaks coming out. Investigation, see who's going to have it out. We're going to take the proper, we're going to reprimand the proper people, right? So he goes, the real scandal here is that the classified information is legally given up by intelligence like candy. And then the best one was, let's see, where he talks about they will be caught and go to jail. I will catch them. Just like Russia. The real story here is why are the illegal coming out of Washington? Will these leaks happen as I deal with North Korea, etc.? So he talks about another tweet was, I'm going to launch an investigation to find out who's in charge of all these tweets.
The leaks?
The leaks, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I get it, and it's national security interests. But if he goes too far, if he goes too far trying to silence all dissidents, I mean, there's a role for
he can't punch out. He can't punch out every single bobhead that comes up. Right?
It's you pop down one and you start smashing dissidents, and then you inspire 5 more.
Yeah.
So there's the practical element, and then there's also, I think it keeps the administration in check when you have every once in a while an Edward Snowden type thing that makes the higher ups realize, oh wait, we don't just get to do whatever we want whenever we want and never get held accountable. So I think if you have that potential for leaks, there's a very positive benefit in that my public servants constantly concerned they're not what they're doing is going to get out. because it might make them think twice about, you know, violence.
I guess I'm very I can't play that card that I think the leaker should go to jail because Hillary Clinton stuff was getting leaked out, right? Like, I didn't really care. I was like, that's good it's getting leaked out because, you know,
you'd rather know.
I guess, yeah. And so, well, Trump actually, why isn't no one calling Trump out on that thing where he's going, hey, where was that Trump? Where was that outrage when the leaks were coming out on the Clinton investigation?
Well, I do think the one thing you got to differentiate is if the leaks are coming out about current, like from the current administration, there's definitely concerns there, especially national security type stuff. Whereas if it's stuff coming out about individuals' actions and it's after the fact, like the Clinton stuff,
but then
there's not much argument that that's damaging national security interests. You could argue she damaged national security interests, but, you know, did any of the information that ended up coming out put the U.S. in a worse position?
I think we got to treat all classified information as classified. And we can't say, oh, this, you know, this threatens national security, this doesn't, therefore I'm not going to care. I think we have to set a bar where either this stuff is classified or it's not. And if it's classified, anyone mishandling classified information should be reprimanded.
Yeah, but
because I think it's a fuzzy line where it's like
it is a fuzzy line. But okay, what about Snowden?
Yeah,
classified.
Yeah,
but are we glad that we know that? I am.
Yeah.
Do I think he did the right thing?
That's what I'm saying. I don't know where I fall into this. Yeah, I don't know.
So it's tough, and there's certainly the possibility of jeopardizing national security interests whenever you have classified information leaked, because someone classified it for a reason. But at the same time, in today's day and age, I don't like the idea of this wall going up and nothing ever getting past it. And, you know, this is classified and no one ever gets to know what's happening and no one gets to know what your elected representatives are doing, ever.
But this is what exactly, back to the family analogy, literally what having classified information does, it creates a sound barrier between your family and other families, right? So that might be a good thing.
But how do you, I'll continue with your analogy. How do you get out, how do you inform people about, you know, abuse within the family? The soundproof. Yeah, no one has to listen to it. No one has to hear you fighting.
Double-edged sword.
But no one. So every once in a while, open the window, you hear it. Oh, guess what? Neighbors call a cop. You know, like it's, you can keep going with that analogy. Yeah. And there's still times in which it's better that, you know, holes get poked in that facade, and or that screen isn't quite so much of a wall as it is a screen. You know. Yeah. But.
Oh my God, you can imagine it kind of like a jail cell where it's like, you know, Iranian jail cells over here, American jail cells right across. You know, every family's in their own jail cell, and
that's a nice picture,
right? Exactly, that's what it is. How long have you been going on here?
No, should we wrap this up soon?
Yeah, let's wrap this up. So so tell them the plan about how often we plan to do this and stuff.
Right. So I mean, obviously we're in our early days, but we hope to be putting out at least one of these, you know, monthly recaps. Sorry, once a month. And one thing that we could really use help for is, you know, topics, what you guys want us to hear from, or what you guys want to hear about. And that way we can sort of, you know, look into some things beforehand and get some ideas before we get together. And then we'll each be posting as we've begun to do. We'll try and keep on a weekly basis of things that come up. But yeah, any feedback about the kind of things you want us to cover in these, especially these longer, you know, face-to-face sessions, we're all ears.
Yeah, and I think that maybe like in the future, even we can set certain, like we can make it an event where we know everyone will know what time we're gonna do it, so you can hop on.
We can take questions.
Yeah, you can go in the chat room and we can create an event out of it. More of a random spur of the moment without telling you guys. But yeah, obviously, you know, if you're watching this, subscribe below, and you know, majority of our videos will be, you know, news flash updates on certain things that happened, and plots and stuff that we see happening in the future. But, you know, we like to switch it up. We talk about this stuff all the time anyway, so we just thought we'd make a podcast out of it. But yeah, any last parting words?
I think that's it.
All right. So this is the Rational Rebels signing off. Subscribe below. Go down. The Rational Rebels. Tell your friends. I don't care what you do, but have a good day.
Take care.